Okay, good afternoon everybody. Another round of coffee questions. And so what's the topic going to be today? Let's talk about simple things that you can do to maintain your random orbital sander or your belt sander. Got a question on the forum that says, guys telling me, hey look, when you get done, I just use my blowgun. I blow out all the ports, the exhaust and the intake and everything else on them, and then I just put it away. Well, that's a good idea. I mean, it really is. What do you think about all that, Charlie? Well, what else can you do? There's more to it than that. More to it than just blowing out the ports. Yep, there sure is. So, what do you think we should get? What do you think? It's called a Krebs disc, I think, right? Yes, Krebs disc. Thick rubber square disc. You can get them out at Harbor Freight. They're about $6. And it helps a great deal. You're right, Charlie. Let's show the folks what one looks like, okay? This is what it looks like. I've had this for a long time. I did get it out at Harbor Freight. He's right, that's what it costs. Let me give you a quick example. Right here, it's a kind of an industrial Bosch. This thing's heavy, it's incredibly powerful, and here it's got this disc on here that's messed up. So I'm going to pan down in a second, and I'm going to show you what I do to clean it up. So let me set the camera. Let me show you what we can do. I'm going to turn it on. And in this case, it didn't get all of this off. This is like a finish that's embedded in there, but it got the rest of this pretty darn clean, So use a Krebs disc, put it up. It was hard to do upside down. I went like this, and I just kept at it, and I probably did it longer than I should have, but it does get it incredibly clean. Now, let's switch it over. Let's talk about your random orbital sander. Now, unless you've really destroyed the disc, you can do the same thing with a random orbital sander, okay? So, here we go. Let me show you what I mean. And it got that pretty darn clean. Now this one wasn't as messed up as this other one with the finish where it burned into it. This one I've just used for strictly sanding and there was no finish, but you can see how well it cleaned it up. Let me explain something to you about random orbital sanders, belt sanders, or any kind of sander. Where do you start? Well, that depends. Let's say you can start at 60 grit. That's pretty damn aggressive. I rarely start off at 60 grit. A lot of times I'll start off at around 80 grit. Now, sheets of like shot plywood, stuff like that, they come with a pretty good sanded finish on them already. But if you're going to use pine board or anything like that, it's usually fairly smooth. You might get away with starting at like 100, 120 grit and then moving up. So let's just go through it. 60 grit for something that's really bad, yeah. I could put that on my belt sander and I can sand the wood very quickly. Most of the time I'm going to start off with 80 grit. On a lot of this stuff like the pine boards or anything like that, I'll start off at 120. Shot plywood, stuff like that, no way. I'm looking at 150, 180 because most of it already has a really nice sanded finish on there. And I might just use a random orbital. You better be damn careful on plywood because it's got that real thin veneer top to it. You'll go right through it real easy. So you got to be really careful about what you're using. I mean, so 150, 180, and if it's a nice sheet, I might just use 220 all over it. Then go from 220 to 320. You're fairly safe. Those are fairly fine grits, so you'll be okay. But I was telling a friend of mine, we're talking, and he was using 150, and he kept using it. I said, "How long have you had that 150 on your sand?" "Oh, I've had it on there a long time." And blah 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 blah. And he goes, "So it sands pretty good, and it gets real smooth." And I go, "Worn out 150 grit doesn't make it 220, okay? Use this when you feel this, and you can feel it. When it feels like it doesn't have any more cutting ability to it, I can't tell you how long. You just get a feel for it. Throw it out. throw it out like somebody else was buying it for you, and put a new piece on there. And so the big trick, like I tell people in sanding, get yourself a pair of dollar store glasses, take a look at the wood. If I sanded with 80, I blow it off real good with my blowgun, and I go ahead and I start sanding with 120 or 100. When I think I've sanded all of the previous 80 grit marks out of it, I look at it with those glasses on. And then I go to 150, and I make sure I get out the 120 marks. And after the 150, I'll go to 220. From 220, I go to 320. 320, I go to 400. That's like my sanding protocol. From 400, I'll go to 500, 600, 800, 1,000, 1,400, 1,500, 2,000, whatever. I mean, and the finer and finer the grit is, the easier it is to where those sanding marks become indistinguishable to the eye and you won't even notice them. But you, for the most part, don't need to go up that high in grits. It just depends on what you're sanding. Get the Krebs disc, Harbor Freight. I'll leave the link below. I got this one from Harbor Freight. I also bought one off Amazon. So if you can't find it at Harbor Freight, or you're like me, I don't feel like running out there for this one little item, I just combine it with other things that I'm buying off Amazon, and it all shows up at your doorstep. Okay, I do keep the ports on these blown out. You can see here's the ports up here. There's ports. Blow them out. The same thing on the big belt sander right here. Here's the ports, and I blow it off and I keep it really clean, and then I wrap it back up for the next use. The rougher grits, I mean, be careful. I mean, you're going to go through a lot of wood quickly, okay? So, any other questions off of the forum before I wrap this up? Okay, it was meant to be your quick tip of the day when it comes to sanding and sanders. If I have small pads on my drill press, I do the same thing. I just reach up, I touch them with this. I mean, this I've always got laying around. It cleans the pads real quickly. You'll get more use out of the sanding paper that you have. Second tip is I buy good quality sandpaper. I don't use garnet. Garnet paper. I mean, I don't buy cheap sandpaper. I use good stuff. You can get it from Klingspor. I buy a lot of mine off Amazon. I'll leave you a couple links below. But I don't buy cheap sandpaper. It's not worth it. It's crap. You use cheap sandpaper for a while, then switch over to good quality sandpaper. You'll see exactly what I mean. Okay, folks, I am the Home Handyman. I hope you click subscribe, follow me, drop a comment if you know another good source for sandpaper, or if you have any other thoughts on how to keep these things clean. Maintenance on them isn't bad. Blow them off, clean your pads up, wrap them up, put them away. They're ready for the next use. I hope you click subscribe. I'll see you soon. Thank you, folks. Bye-bye. Say goodbye, Charlie. Okay, folks, thank you for watching. I hope you click subscribe. Like he said, drop a comment. We'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.